Today's episode is a little different and deeply personal. I was recently a guest on the Being the Black Sheep podcast, hosted by a podcast producer who creates space for real, unfiltered conversations. And in that conversation, I opened up in ways I had never done before. We talked about my story, not just my work as a mental health professional, but the experiences that shaped me, stretched me, and ultimately led me to this path. As someone who is usually the one holding space for others, it was both vulnerable and meaningful to step into that space myself. After reflecting on it, I knew it was the right time to share it with you here. I hope you listen with an open heart and maybe see a part of your own journey reflected in mine. Now, let's get into it.
You ever look like you have your life together and then close the bathroom door and completely fall apart? Yeah. This episode isn't funny. It's not sassy. There's no, bah, bitch today. This one is real because for a long time, I wasn't struggling out loud. I was struggling quietly, very quietly. I was building businesses, driving nice cars, hosting events, smiling in photos, and then going home and fighting a war with food. Not because I wanted to be skinny, not because I hated myself, but because when your childhood feels chaotic, when love feels conditional, when silence in the family, or when silence is the family language, you look for control anywhere you can find it. And food is easy. You can control it, you can restrict it, you can binge it, and you can get rid of it until it controls you. Today I'm sitting with a psychotherapist who also knows this battle personally, not just professionally. We're talking about bulimia, shame, perfectionism, and why the black sheep doesn't just act out. Sometimes she acts inward. If you've ever felt powerful in public and powerless in private, stay with me. Let's talk about the hunger no one sees. So I've been absent for a little bit, Black Sheep. Welcome back. I took a little hiatus. Now it's the new year, 2026. And I am very, very excited to have Rachel Blogg on the show, who is a psychotherapist, who is here to talk about something that we're both very uncomfortable talking about. And I think both of us have maybe shared with few friends, family, professionals, but never fully all out on a podcast with another person who's experienced it. This is going to be a first for both of us. So I want to welcome Rachel Blogg to the show. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being here. I am over the moon and scared as hell
Same.
that
My heart is just like beating, racing.
It's insane, and I referred to you and I spoke to you about this when we had originally talked about it. Having an eating disorder is like having a mistress that no one knows about. Yep. It's secretly hiding what you're eating. It's going to bathrooms in places and trying to, slide out of rooms before people can see you. It's being obsessive about certain habits, counting calories, writing things down in notebooks,
Yep.
using apps to figure out if whatever you're eating that day is going to fit in a certain criteria, and you're defined by what's on that piece of paper or that app.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit, because I'll get into my story as well, and I'm excited and nervous at the same time because it's so important for people to talk about this, because I have tons of friends, tons of clients that are in the recovery space. And when I mean recovery, drug and alcohol recovery. Right. When you throw an eating disorder into the mix, no one really understands that unless you've been through it, because you have to eat to live. So as a psychotherapist and someone who has had her own journey, why don't we start with your journey and how this all came about?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And because I've never really just spoken out loud. I mean, I think some of my closest friends knew. I know my parents had known. I don't even know that I've actually shared my whole story with my husband or my kids. And because a lot of that is, and I don't want to say shame, but I think that I've done so much work with it, and it's been so many years since I will say that I've been in recovery. That doesn't mean that the thoughts still don't pop up sometimes. But my story was a little different because it wasn't about control for me. I think it actually was from being shamed about my body at a young age. And it started, I think I was like 7 or 8, and I will never forget where I was, who it was from. I was at a friend's house, and I had just come back from camp. And, you know, camp, you go to camp and you let loose, and you have sugar cereals that you don't have at home. And, you know, you're getting care packages, you're eating whatever the hell you want, right? But I mean, I was 7, like, shouldn't I be doing that? And I came home, and I was at their house, and I remember their parent was on the phone with my mom, and their mom had said, "Oh, Rachel got so fat." And in that moment, I thought to myself, oh, wow. I stopped wearing the dolphin shorts that we all wore at that age. You know, I stopped wearing like tank tops. I started wearing bigger clothes. And I guess I didn't attribute like any eating disorder at that point. I had a dislike for my body. That's when it started. So that's probably when I started like looking at food and dieting in different ways. You know, I grew up in a household that was very loving and open, but we didn't have sugar cereal. I think we got promoted to sugar cereal, which was like Honey Nut Cheerios or maybe Raisin Bran, right? And so when I'd go to college or, camp, I'd have whatever I wanted. But so from a very young age, I learned that my body was wrong. My body was bad.
And you had to restrict certain foods in your household, it sounds like.
Correct. And not because that's what my parents instilled. Like, they weren't saying, "Oh, you are fat, you can't have this." It's just, this was like, you know, we don't
the way it was.
Right. We didn't have a lot of sugar cereals in our house. We didn't have a lot of candy in our house, you know. But I grew up in a very athletic home. My father was a triathlete. My mom played tennis. So activity was something part of my life, right? And again, let me say this. Looking back now, that 7-year-old was not heavy. That 10-year-old, that's right. 12-year-old, 13, 14, 15 was not heavy. Now come to a time where I go to college, and I remember going to college and being so afraid of the freshman 15, right? That I immediately begged my mom, "I need you to put me on a diet." So we did. I went to school with Nutrisystem. And if you know anything about Nutrisystem, like, it's packed foods. So I was not living like a kid in college. I was constrained to these packaged foods, what you were eating, and I didn't need a meal plan because I had my meals, right? But now looking back, I'm like, what college kid should be sent to school with a diet, let alone a paid one that I have to have shipped to me every single month, right? And so I always exercised, I always worked out, and it wasn't until I got to college that I started dating this guy who was a bodybuilder, and he was very much into fitness. And we'd had dinner. And again, now remember, I'm speaking logically now as a 54-year-old in recovery therapist who knows what I looked like. I was not overweight. No doctor would ever say I needed to be on a diet. No doctor would ever say my BMI was too high. It was all about what was just messaged to me. So we had finished dinner, and I remember being like hungry. So I went and grabbed an apple. And he's like, "Why are you eating that?" And that moment is when my bad relationship with food and my body became worse. And that's when I started to develop like what I label as exercise bulimia. And I will be honest with you, like, even now I get
explain what that is to people that don't understand?
Yeah.
Because your form of bulimia and my form of bulimia,
very different.
Very different.
Totally. Right. And so my form of bulimia, nobody questioned because I wasn't sneaking away from the table. Okay. I wasn't going to the bathroom at ungodly hours.
Right.
Right. I wasn't taking laxatives, diuretics. I wasn't doing that. I was exercising for 4 to 6 hours a day. So that's hard to pinpoint for somebody and say that's unhealthy because, you know, I was at the gym 4 hours in the morning. I would do an hour and a half of weight training. I would do 2 hours on the stair climber, no hands at level 10. And then I would take like a 30-minute ab class. And then in the afternoon, I would do another hour workout of step up. But what I then combined that with was my rigidity with my eating. So I didn't say I would have anorexia, but there's definitely some form of it because I could tell you today, I mean, we're February 13th. So give your listeners an example, which And let me just stop real fast because I actually want to say this to my listeners that because obviously I have a podcast, but I also am a therapist. Many of my clients might be hurt that I have not shared this personal journey in depth with them. And it's because it's my journey. And I'm going to be honest, like if any of my clients have ever struggled with eating disorders, because I do work with people who have eating disorders, it wasn't my journey to express to them because they weren't there to help me. Like I was there to help them. So if my listeners or my clients hear this and they're listening, like it's not I didn't share it with you because I didn't want to, but it wasn't the place to, right? So I guess coming here, my family might listen to this and be like, oh, wow, I didn't even know that. Some friends may be shocked. Some friends may not be shocked. But back to, I could tell you today what I was going to eat April 1st because I kept a journal. I wrote 4 meals down a day and the time. So if you can imagine my rigidity, I was in college. I did not go out with people if it didn't fit into my time to eat. If we scheduled to go to dinner on a Friday night at 6 o'clock, I needed to know where because I was scouring that menu to fit into my daily intake. My life, my world revolved around food, how much exercise I was going to get, and what that scale said. And so I didn't, look like your typical malnourished person. I looked like a strong athlete who was really fit. Until my parents said, something's not right. The rigidity, your inability to be flexible, Rachel, I wasn't going to dinner with them. I wasn't enjoying, I was actually miserable. I loved how I looked on the outside, but I was miserable on the inside. So I was working out about on a light day, 4 hours a day. On a heavier day, 6 to 7 hours a day. And if you think about it, I was sleeping about 8 hours, maybe less, probably 6 to 8 hours, depending on when I'd go to sleep.
Yeah.
And I was maybe consuming 1,000 calories.
I get it. As you're talking, I completely understand everything.
And as I share that with you, I'm almost like I could cry because I was so unkind to myself and my body, and I pretended that things were great, and I don't think people knew how to even help me because I didn't present with, the typical things that happen with bulimia or anorexia.
Right.
My hair wasn't falling out. I was just exercising, running the stadium steps for an hour and a half a day. I had my friends who were joining me, so it was not abnormal. But yeah, I was super unkind to myself and my body.
I'm so proud of you for sharing your story. I know that's not easy, and it opens a can of worms, and it makes you vulnerable and uncomfortable because I truly feel that people look at me differently when I tell them about the eating disorder.
Yeah.
And it's very frustrating because I don't want to explain it to them.
Right.
There's always seems to be a story, whereas food and alcohol and drugs, rather, it's very black and white.
Right.
Don't do drugs, don't drink alcohol.
Right. But we need
be in a
food
program,
to live,
right.
We need to exercise to stay healthy, to keep our cardiovascular up.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's such a gray area between eating healthy, exercising, and taking care of yourself as a human and loving yourself in that way, or going to the extreme. And I've been there too. I would wake up every morning in college watching Denise Austin aerobics videos.
Yep.
Every morning at 7 a.m. I would get up when I was at FSU. I would do that. I refused to eat fruit because it had sugar.
So much sugar in it.
And I remember the Atkins diet was super popular.
Yep.
So if I wasn't just eating protein, it wasn't on the list for me.
Right.
Which is so unhealthy. I was constipated. I wasn't feeling well. My whole digestive system was absolutely awful. And then I was purging. So I remember when you're dealing with that level of activity, I was fainting because I wasn't getting the nourishment that my body needed. And the habits, I mean, if I told you all of the habits that I used to do, I've never told anybody how bad it got. And to say I'm in recovery is one thing. Do I slip up? Absolutely. I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't.
Yeah.
Have I gone through a lot of therapy? Yes. Have I gone to a lot of groups? Yes. Do I wish I would have done the recovery part differently and been put into a center where, do I wish I would have done that in hindsight in my 20s? Probably. But I thought it's only going to be for a little bit until I get my weight down. It's only going to be for a little bit and then I'll stop.
Just this one more time.
That's right. Just this one more time, just another 5 pounds. But then being overweight my whole life and then getting to that weight, everyone was suddenly now, I wasn't the girl that everyone didn't want to invite on the soccer field, or I wasn't picked last anymore with sports. I was the person that was looking good and people were like, oh my gosh, Janine looks so great. What did you do? And then I felt the pressure to uphold that.
Yep.
And that carried on through when I graduated college, and so much control, so many issues, so much trauma that led to that. And I was open with you about that. And you even said that's triggering you to this day. And that's when my mom was killed in a car accident, and my dad was, God bless him, he was the best father I could have ever imagined. He was amazing.
Yeah.
However, he brought me to a therapist because he's like, as any father would do when their mother is ripped away from them at 12 years old. He brought me to a therapist who was recommended to him. And after 3 or 4 sessions, and I felt it was my fault, the car accident that my mom was in, I felt like it was my fault. We had a really bad argument that day. I felt guilty for the accident. I blamed myself. And on that session of whatever we were doing that I can barely remember, I remembered the one thing he said because I still felt like it was my fault. And he said, I thought we were over this by now.
Right.
And then something snapped in me where I thought, I can't even talk to a doctor about how I'm feeling. I can talk to nobody about how I'm feeling. So then I internalized everything, and that set me into a tailspin.
Yeah. And so you didn't share that. Yeah.
Right. And I didn't want to tell my dad because I was too young and insecure, and I didn't want to tell my dad that because I didn't want to get the doctor in trouble by saying something. And I didn't want to tell my dad, bring me to somebody else, because I didn't want my dad to ask me 1,000 questions. So I suffered in silence. And that's what you do when you go through trauma. I think generations today are much better at dealing with trauma and being open about their feelings and their mental health. But back in the 90s, you just didn't do that as a child. It wasn't a thing to speak up.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how food and food restrictions can really just send you into a tailspin.
Yeah.
When did you have a rock bottom where you're like, all right, something's got to give?
Yeah, my parents. It was when I was in college, and I was dating that guy who was long distance, and I would go home and I would pass their house in Boca, drive down to him, and not even stop to say hello to my parents, which is not like me because I'm a very, very family-oriented person. And I'd be down there the whole weekend, and, you know, his mom was a bodybuilder, personal trainer, he was it. And for me, my parents could sense something was not right. I was irritable. And aside from the fact that, you know, I was so light for scale-wise, I mean, what's interesting is I'm not that far away from what I'm at now than I was, but I'm just healthier now. Right. So if you look at the numbers, I'm like 6-7 pounds difference in that number, but I'm so healthier today. But I was really irritable. I really couldn't be flexible. I couldn't bend. I would lose my shit if my parents said, we're going to go to dinner at 6:30 to Fridays. And then last minute they said, oh guys, we're going to go at 6 and we're going to go to Chili's. I didn't know how to cope because I had been planning my week based on exactly what I was going to get. Grilled chicken, dry, on romaine lettuce, no dressing, balsamic vinegar only, and cucumbers at Fridays. And now I have to shift to Chili's. And forget that I probably could have gotten the same damn thing at Chili's, but it was a different time. I just couldn't shift. And my parents said, Rachel, something's going on with you. You are lighter than you've ever been. Okay. And I don't do drugs. I wasn't doing drugs. Obviously, I wasn't drinking because that was calories. And they said, if you don't put on some weight, again, remember, they did the best that they could do at time too. You're going to need to go to Renfrew. And Renfrew by me at that time was an inpatient. And I was like, there's no way in hell I'm going. I don't need Renfrew. I don't have a problem. Because again, back then, we're talking in the 80s. Now, I went to college in 89. So let's just say 90, okay? Back then, exercise was healthy. The only things you knew of eating disorders was either anorexia or bulimia. It was either restriction or purging.
That's right.
Right? I didn't fall into either of those categories in my mind. But getting rid of calories and food based on exercise bulimia and that's when it was finally labeled. So what did I do? And this was horrible because it was not the way to go to get healthy, is I stopped taking my thyroid medication because I had a goiter. So I already had an underactive thyroid. I stopped taking my thyroid medication. And in that time, in 30 days, I had probably put on 22 pounds. Nothing changed. I still was exercising the amount of exercising. I was still restricting, but I was now just stopped. My thyroid was not working. So I actually did a lot of disservice to my body internally, like my thyroid system and everything like that. And it ultimately took a long time. And that's when I started to get to therapy. And so with the therapist, we really more worked on like love myself and self-love and not needing to exercise that much. So I was really put on a strict exercise plan that I could work out an hour a day, you know.
Which is even hard for someone to...
Oh.
It's even harder when you have a regimen in your head.
100%.
And then you're getting help, but they're told that you have to be on this regimen.
100%.
People have no idea.
People think, oh, an hour a day.
Hard.
Right.
They
but
have no
going
idea.
from 5 hours a day of exercise to now I'm only allowed maximum of an hour. And I had to do that for a long time. And I had to really struggle. Like I was struggling. And there were days where I did go and exercise more because I might have eaten a little bit more pasta. At the time, I did not know I had celiac. But I mean, I remember I was having stomach issues. And that's when my parents were like, you're 18 years old. Why are you having all these stomach issues? I didn't go to the bathroom for like weeks. So I had my first colonoscopy. I think I was like 18 years old, 19 years old. You know? And that's not typical for a healthy person.
I resonate with that so much because mine was at like 21. And everyone's like, why are you getting a colonoscopy and an upper GI? And I'm like, because I just ripped my insides apart. Right. That's why.
Right. So I think that was the point where I put on all that weight scale-wise, and I was very bloated, that my parents were like, what's going on? And I had to tell them I stopped taking my medication. So I had to find another endocrinologist that specialized in, you know, women, but also like athletes. Because again, remember, I was an athlete. I would describe myself as an athlete. My father was an athlete. I'd run half marathons. My first half marathon was with my dad before I was 25. I'd been running my whole life with him, you know? And so now, after all those years, I've gotten to a place where I was not exercising every day like I was. I was now giving myself some grace. It took me many years to let go of the rigidity of writing food down. I'm not going to lie. I don't remember if it's, I think it might have been like, I was probably in my like late 30s. And even saying that, like, I'm like, I feel shame of like, what's wrong with you? Like, but I stopped writing my food down and I stopped dieting at like that time, you know? And maybe some of it shifted when I had my kids because I was breastfeeding and that was really important to me. And I knew that if I was restricting my food and exercising too much, I was not going to be able to produce milk. And I wanted to breastfeed, not because, oh my God, I needed to, but because I was like financially, it was like free. I don't need to buy bottles. I don't need to buy formula. It's free. So that was my motivation to kind of, and that was my journey to get healthier. And I think that,
you know what's interesting about that?
Yeah.
I look back on it and I've never had children.
Mm-hmm.
And partly because my husband and partner for 17 years had children before and had a vasectomy, and I wasn't able to get pregnant naturally.
Right.
But I've always wondered deep down if I didn't want to gain the weight from the pregnancy.
Totally get that.
And in my head, as you're just talking about that, it's like there's a lot of things I haven't done because of that.
Fear.
I mean, not so much anymore, but if someone had asked me in my 20s to go to dinner and a movie directly afterwards,
Oh, you couldn't.
I couldn't do it because I'm like, what bathroom am I going to use? How am I going to throw up? What am I going to say? How do I?
Right.
I couldn't
Yeah.
I couldn't deal. It was one or the other.
I got
And
that.
still, I feel comfortable only going to dinner with people and then leaving and going
Right.
home. I don't like to carpool with people. I drive myself everywhere because I don't want other people to be responsible for me because I always need an out.
Yeah.
It has infiltrated my life in ways that people cannot
Yeah.
understand.
I get that. Yeah, I can understand that, and I didn't experience that because obviously I'm not going to go home and exercise in the middle. But what I did find to be very frustrating for me is my need to explain why I wasn't going to get the dessert or why I wasn't going to get candy at the movies, or and even after like I did get into my space of recovery where now like I can exercise because I want to exercise and it's healthy for me. But I still have to be mindful. And like I said, even though I describe myself in recovery, I'm very much aware of that voice of just one more mile, Rachel.
Yeah.
And that came up for me when I was training for my Ironman because I was doing a lot of training as described by my coach, right? Like I was staying with what I was supposed to with my coach. But there are times where I'd lost some weight because you're training a 120-mile bike ride and like I'm going to these century rides and then running 10 miles after, and I wasn't used to eating 2,000, 3,000 calories a day. So sometimes I'd have almond M&Ms at night just because I needed to kind of keep some calories in. But then that little voice the next day said, well, you're supposed to run 6 miles. That's your training. But let's do 7. Fortunately, because I had done so much work from my own journey, but also me being a DBT therapist, I was able to recognize that was my disordered eating voice and not my wise mind voice.
I understand. I love chocolate. I've eaten like 3 pieces of chocolate since you've been here. 20 years ago, could I have done that? Absolutely not.
Right.
Now I'm like,
You don't want any more.
now
That's
I'm
okay.
like, all right, I love it. If I gain weight, so what?
Yeah.
I love it. It's
Yep.
chocolate. It's Valentine's Day tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it's my mom's birthday today, actually.
Oh, my
February.
mom's was yesterday.
Love that.
Oh, so today's a hard day for you.
It used to be for many, many, many years. Many
And
years.
look at that. And you're
now,
doing something so difficult to talk about this on air.
Irony,
now on her
right?
birthday.
Irony.
She's proud of you.
She is. She is.
I'm
She
proud of
was-
you.
Thank you. I'm proud of you. This is not easy, especially someone that does therapy for a living. It's so hard to explain to people when it's food. It's
Yep.
not hard to explain it when you're a drug and alcohol counselor and you can say, I've been sober for X amount of years. We're never sober because we
Right.
eat
Yeah.
all day.
And exercise.
And
It's something that
exercise.
is told to do all day.
I wouldn't
a
wish this. I wouldn't wish this on anybody, and
Yeah.
it's been very challenging in my life because it's.
We're surrounded by food everywhere. Social
is.
events are food. You can,
And I'm so jealous of friends that can just go to dinner, eat what they want, not think about it. It's not even a thought in their mind. Just like the way I'm sure a lot of my sober friends look at me the
right.
same way, that I could have one glass of wine and be
Right.
satisfied at dinner with one glass and
Right.
then not.
or even go to dinner and not even think about wanting a glass of wine.
That's right.
100%. I get it.
It's so
Yeah.
bizarre. The mind is really crazy. And I think part of this show, being the black sheep, a lot of people think, Janine, you were always loved. You weren't a black sheep. You weren't.
Yeah.
Everyone loved you in the family. And I never, my black sheep story did not result from family love or
100%.
it resulted from me feeling that I never belonged in my own body,
Yep.
in my own mind, in my own brain.
Yeah.
That was my black sheep
I
story.
totally get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that for me it was, I grew up in a very loving home. I'm the oldest of 4. I mean, we're very close, right? It was never like, oh, you're a horrible person or any trauma that we've talked about, right? Except like those little innuendos, right? I was put on diet pills when I was a very young age, right? The message that sends, even if it's something that I might have asked for, right? Being supported to go on diet pills when I didn't really need to be on diet pills. You know? And so for me, I do know that, like, I now can stand, like, do I love my body? No. Do I love pieces of my body? Absolutely. Is my body ever going to change? It can in some ways when I make it stronger and I do things like that, but I'm never going to be 5'8". I'm never going to have, like, you know, like an hourglass figure. That's just not how I was created. And it's finally taken me into my 50s to be like, okay, I like that little tush that's flat as a pancake.
I love my little tush now too. Thanks to my GLP, I'm down to nothing, but I like it. I'm like, hey, whatever, right. It's me.
Yeah,
I'm owning it. I'm 43 and owning it. I think that comes with age and wisdom, especially with disordered eating, is that you get to a certain point where you're like,
I don't care.
Oh well.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Take it or leave it.
I do struggle still. There are moments, and I think I envy women who wear clothes that, like, I know logically I'm half their size and I wouldn't ever be in. And they are so in their own skin.
And they look great.
They look amazing.
Yes.
And they're 2-3 times sizes bigger than me, but they own their body. They own their confidence. And I envy that.
Amen.
I envy those women. And if I have any listeners, because I know you and I both have talked about, like, people who listen to us, if you are on the bigger side and you're just saying to yourself, I'll wait till I lose weight to get to the gym, just know that there are women smaller than you that envy you for showing up at the gym and being, whether you are confident or not, but you may appear confident. I envy those women that wear what they basically says, I don't care.
And they're comfortable
in it. And they're just loving life. Because I'm very strategic with a lot of my clothes still. That I will say. So that's probably something I probably would need to work on with my therapist. You know?
Me too, I think.
Yeah.
I wear, like, I've lost 60 pounds.
Right, and you're wearing, like, baggy
and I'm
shirt,
wearing
right?
like baggy jeans and a sweater.
Yeah, this shirt's like.
And when I dress up, my friends are like, "Oh my God, you look so great!" And it's like, I do clean up well. I just purposely want to be comfortable, I don't want attention on my body. I don't want attention on how I look.
Yeah, I get that.
I don't want that attention. I've spent years trying to get away from that.
Right.
I just want to be comfortable being me,
Yeah.
and I think that's. If I dress for me and I'm comfortable in my own skin, then I'll come in here sometimes with no makeup and a baseball hat.
Right,
and I'm like,
that's great too.
You know?
But I think that if we're not wearing things because we're uncomfortable, and I don't mean uncomfortable because it's a corset and we're just so damn tight in it, but uncomfortable because, oh my God, is it showing a little bit of a roll on this side? That's, I think, our disordered thought process.
True.
You know?
True. I almost wore a dress last night because I had an event here. Skin tight. It was a friend of mine who gave me this dress, and she has great taste in clothes, and everything she gave me fit me because we're basically the same size. And it was a little tight, and I had to ask the hubs. I did like 4 different outfits, and I had that on, and I'm like, you don't sugarcoat it. Tell me.
Yeah.
Because I might be in my head thinking, well, it's just too tight because it might be in my head. I might be uncomfortable. And he's like, no, it's a little too tight. I'm like, that's what I thought. And then I got into something that I felt fabulous in. All those thoughts people don't have to worry about on a daily basis. So in closing, your black sheep story, it sounds, really is within you with disorderly eating around food and this kind of whirlwind that we put ourselves through and this self-destruction that we put ourselves through instead of loving ourselves, which is so sad. If I look at it, all those years that I wasn't comfortable or I wasn't doing X, Y, and Z, what do you want after talking about this, which I'm sure was very uncomfortable? What do you want people to take away from this for you?
I want people to take away that their body is their body. And there is no size that's going to define you as a person or who you are or your worth or what you deserve based on a number on the scale, based on a size that you can buy at the store. Because what mattered then, like if I could talk to my 20-year-old self, I would bitch slap her and be like, wake the F up.
Yep.
Your body, you get one body. Love your life.
You can say fuck. I love the word fuck.
Yeah, I would, because I'd like, wake the fuck up. Like, you're going to spend all this time beating yourself up, hating yourself. But why? This is what you were given. Because I don't hate myself today. I don't beat myself up. We have candy all over my house. I swore I was never going to be that house. I mean, we have candy in our pantry. We have candy in our thing. And guess what? I don't need it all the time. Why? Because I don't deprive myself of it.
That's right.
And that's
right.
what I would love for any of our listeners, especially if you're in college or you come from a family that is so like pinpointing or self-invalidating on like why you are a size you are. It's okay. You get that body. Learn to embrace it. That doesn't mean you still can't work to change it, but by embracing it for who you are and saying, you know what, I want to be stronger. I want to run a marathon. I want to do a bodybuilding competition. Those are great, right?
Make a goal, but don't let the scale define you.
100%. And what's interesting is that having disordered eating, having bulimia, having exercise bulimia, having anorexia, you don't have control. So as much as you think you have control, you are so out of control.
Isn't that interesting? The whole irony of that.
You don't have control over what you're eating. You are consumed by it. And as soon as it consumes you, you have lost your control.
So interesting, that little voice in the back of our heads that brings us back to that time. I really thank you for being here and sharing your story. And I hope to have you back again for another, because with this podcast, I'm sure we'll be talking about this intermittently. Absolutely. Because it's such a huge part of my life and my self-discovery and why I got into podcasting, to be able to tell my story when I felt like I was constricted for so many years. There's so much to unpack there.
I'm sure.
But I think it's really important that if you are struggling with any disordered eating, whether it's, compulsive eating, exercise bulimia, anorexia, the whole gamut of them, tell someone you trust, number one. Someone who's not going to feel like they're they're judging
you,
and get the help that you need. There's a lot of resources out there.
Absolutely.
My dear friend, Joanna Candell, who runs the Alliance for Eating Disorders in West Palm, thank you for saving my life in my early 20s when I had never told a soul. And you stepped in and you helped me. So thanks, Joanna. And there's so many resources out there.
Absolutely.
And where can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram. They can find me on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Rachel Blogg, LCSW. And my podcast is Perfectly Imperfect Me 365.
Yay!
Which is why I started that, which is interesting because I started it for different reasons, not to necessarily share my story, but to share how I use certain skills in life for people who are struggling in different things. And I think that if this can help just one person recognize that they're not alone and they don't have to be perfect, and there's no shame in needing some help.
That's so
and it
true.
Doesn't have to look like your typical bulimia or anorexia. There's so many other things that you might be struggling with, and find somebody. I think back to what you said, find somebody that you trust, one person. And even if it's a therapist, find somebody. It's okay. But I really appreciate this, and thank you so much for making this the safest space for me to share my story that has never been shared before. Because I know when we talked off camera before, it was almost like we just started talking about it. And the next thing we're like, did I just share that with you? You're like, did you just share that with me?
Right.
Holy cow. How did we just share this? We've never really just shared this so
That's
clearly.
right. That's right.
So thank you. Because I do feel like there's been a weight lifted off of me.
I love that. And I love that for both of us. I love that we're giving ourselves that gift, because even though I've talked about it on podcasts before, I've never talked about it on my own podcast. And I've never talked about it, number one, in front of a therapist for the world to hear. And I think it's so important to know that it's a sister, it's a brother, it's an uncle, it's a woman in their 70s, it's a man in his 80s.
Yeah.
It doesn't discriminate.
No.
Eating disorders do not discriminate. Yeah. They are in every race, every culture, and there are resources for you.
And it doesn't look the same. And I think that's the piece that a lot of people, because why I kept myself so silent for so long also is because I didn't look emaciated. I looked strong. I didn't look unhealthy, but my mind was so unhealthy, right? And so don't assume that somebody is not underweight or malnourished.
That's right.
Or even if they're overweight, that they have an eating disorder.
It's so true.
You know?
You never know. You never know what someone's going through and what they're struggling with. And my fellow black sheep, this has been one for the books. I'm glad you tuned in today, and there will be more coming. So thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.